What is up, everybody? It is me, DevilNeverCry, and in this video I want to go over DMC5 SE and the recent Famitsu article that took place, which featured Itsuno-san, the director, Matt Walker, one of the producers, and Kumabe, who is the game designer for DMC5. And they go on record to talk about some different things when it comes to DMC5 SE, and there's a few points I want to touch upon which point out or stick out as rather interesting. As always though, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with anything and everything Devil May Cry, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out when new content drops. And also, before we quickly begin, I do want to give a shout out to the DMC Info team over on Twitter. They're the ones that localized this interview or translated it, and they've done so for many an interview in the past, so big props to them for getting this over to the community. But the first point I want to talk about is the fact that DMC5 was essentially supposed to be the finished product. They had crammed it with as much content as possible because they had no intentions for any post-release DLC, which I guess runs counter to sentiment in the community. I mean, a lot of people expected or thought that 5 SE was planned from the very beginning and that they perhaps held back or cut back content, which, you know, they're going on record to say that's not the case. Maybe it's PR talk, maybe they're telling the truth. You can make up your own mind on that. They did go on to state though that this new hardware, or the launch of the new consoles, would essentially give them a reason to bring DMC5 as a launch title, but also address some of the more popular fan demands such as Turbo Mode or Playable Virgil. On the topic of Playable Virgil, that brings us to our next point, which I think you'll agree is quite peculiar. Itsuno and Kumabe go on to state and tease that not everything was shown for Virgil, including weapons, and so we should look forward to receiving more information. Now, there is a bit of disclaimer that the word they used for weapons can either be singular or plural, and so it is up to the reader's interpretation. As I mentioned, this is an interview from Famitsu in Japanese. It was translated. In translation, there is a bit of leeway considering that, languages cannot be often word for word transcribed, so there is a bit of interpretation there, but who knows? In one of the previous videos I did mention that Matt Walker did put out a tweet implying that there were multiple weapons for Virgil. Perhaps there are actual multiple weapons. Maybe we'll get some fan favorites like Beowulf and the Force Edge, which seems to be the entirety of Virgil's moveset, or maybe it's a monkey paw situation where, oh look, summon swords technically counts as another weapon. Hey guys, don't you agree? And then the fan base and community just wallows in sadness and probably ends up very mad. But I guess there might be a little bit of evidence that leads credence to this theory, and that is in the sound selection CD that Capcom announced today for Virgil. It is a CD with a selection of tracks to coincide with DMC5 SE's release, specifically for Virgil, and it has a track list featuring 8 tracks, of course, and one of them, again, is quite peculiar, one of them being the Beowulf battle theme. Now, why they would include a Beowulf theme for DMC5 SE, your guess is as good as mine. Some people, myself included, suspect that maybe, just maybe, one of the other weapons Virgil is going to be receiving is Beowulf. Now, don't quote me on that, again, it is just a theory, but let me know down in the comments what you think. Do you think it's bogus? Do you think it's conspiracy theory tier? Or do you think it's something that might actually be the case? Moving on though to the next point of this interview I want to quickly touch upon. It's a quote from Itsuno-san that says, "If you have a reckless or thoughtless playstyle, playing as Virgil might be challenging for you." And then Kumabe goes on to reiterate that calmness and standing your ground will be rewarded in DMC5 SE when you play as Virgil. Now, for anybody that has played DMC4 Special Edition, you'll know that this essentially alludes to the concentration mechanic, where if you don't miss attacks, if you don't run, if you don't just jump erratically, and you land clean hits and don't get hit yourself, your concentration bar goes up, and you start to do more and more and more damage, and you get all sorts of playstyle modifiers, which is a pretty cool mechanic if you think, considering it ties in with Virgil's cool and calm and collectedness. And then obviously the third level culminates in the Judgment Cut End, which is the one everybody likes to pop off. It's the room clearer, it's the one you use when you have almost no health left, which actually doesn't really make sense considering if you have no health left, you're more than likely not going to have a full concentration bar, but I digress. We had confirmation that concentration is coming back in DMC5, but it's cool to see it reiterated here, albeit in a way that people who have no idea what the concentration bar is are probably going to be staring at this piece of information like, what the fuck? What is the development team talking about here? I'm here to just pop off the Judgment Nut ends, and I'm here to play however I want. I want to play like an old man with a cane just standing about waiting to be hit. That was V. No. I want to be out there slicing and dicing just as wildly as Dante. And the last topic I want to briefly touch upon is the fact that DMC5 SE is 95% done in its completion. There's only 5% left to go. However you want to say it, however you want to spin it, it's on the cusp of being finished. Some people thought that, considering at TGS we got 10 seconds of gameplay for Virgil, that the game was nowhere near done, if that makes sense, considering we saw barely any of it, except all the same sort of stuff. But as I had made mention of in the past, the new consoles are right around the corner. It's a month to go, essentially. I don't think Capcom would announce a game and then just be like, oh, well, it's pretty much not finished. I reckon we're going to miss the deadline, but hey, let's just tell people it's a thing. But I digress. There's not long left until DMC5 SE drops. I'm hoping we get just a little bit more of information before we get to the launch of the game, just because I want to see more of Virgil. I want to see what he's about, what this whole weapon issue is, like what's going on here. Capcom, can you just give it to us straight, please? That is going to bring us to the end of the video, though. Of course, if you enjoyed today's video, do be sure to leave a like. Check out the links in the description if you want to get at me at some of the other socials. And with all that said and done, it has been me, DevilNeverCry. I would like to thank all of you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next video.